With Avengers Endgame beating first-day pre-sale records in just 6 hours, it's safe to say it's highly anticipated. With half of all life in the Marvel Cinematic Universe dusted in the decimation, we're eager to find out as much as we can about the movie, but sometimes we get more than we bargained for and then end up knowing a little too much, learning things we can't unknow that we wish we could have experienced in the theaters. Here are some things we wish we could unsee. Before the release of the first Avengers Endgame trailer, there was a ton of speculation as to how it'd even be possible to make a trailer for Endgame that didn't involve a ton of spoilers. We know that most of our heroes are coming back for more movies. Spider-Man's second MCU title hits theaters shortly after Endgame, and we already know that Doctor Strange and Black Panther are preparing for their second outings. What could they show us that wouldn't solve a mystery right away? The answer was another mystery unto itself. When Tony Stark hitched a ride on a Q ship to defend the Time Stone from Ebony Maw, he found himself on Titan. When Thanos snapped, Tony lost Doctor Strange and Spider-Man as well as most of the Guardians of the Galaxy, leaving him there alone with Nebula. While Nebula can fly spaceships, she's not the greatest at landing them, as her opening move seems to be to crash her ship into whoever she hates the most at that moment. Gamora, Thanos, whoever. With such a single-minded revenge machine as his only companion and only the Benatar to save them, would Tony be stranded in space? We got even more to that mystery when the first trailer was released. It opened with a defeated Tony recording a farewell message to the love of his life, other than himself and being Iron Man, Pepper Potts. With the ingenuitive engineer, the financier of the Avengers, and the first official member lost in space, we got a renewed appreciation of how separated and alone our heroes are and the hill they'll have to climb to assemble, much less bring back the dusted. It was a perfect mystery, except it's solved. He's on Earth, in time to take part in the slow-mo walk in the white suits. Now we're left wondering what the mechanics are, and it's just not as satisfying. The how to undo the snap has been one of the most hotly contested questions of the post-snap world. Fans of the comic book series delved into the Infinity Gauntlet looking for answers. Would Thanos agree to weakening himself to take on the assembled heroes while someone works from inside the Soul Stone? Would Nebula get her hand in the powerful gauntlet and then go power mad herself? But the Marvel Cinematic Universe hasn't always followed the comic book stories exactly. Civil War didn't start because of a reality show hero team blowing up a city block. Spider-Man was never convinced to switch sides by a rousing speech by Captain America, and Punisher was never a part of it, reluctant or not. There are already changes in the story, just like with Thanos' reason for snapping out half of all life in the universe. In the comics, he was hot for death, not the concept of death, but the personification of death, and hoped to impress her with, well, death. Once we got the slow-mo white suit walk in the Super Bowl spot, we knew what tool the team would be using to bring back the dusted. The suits were not unlike Scott Lang's quantum suit. Since we knew that Scott made his way out of the quantum realm after the adjustable-size Pym Van Dyne family was dusted while he was there, we now knew what his plan was, bringing the quantum tunnel-equipped van to the Avengers HQ. Scott Lang quipped at his benefactor and original Ant-Man, Hank Pym, that he seemed like he was just putting the word quantum in front of everything, and it makes sense. The quantum realm and the quantum particles seem to have a lot of ill-defined properties. Even in regular science, quantum is a hard concept to understand, but in the super science world of the MCU, it can stabilize powers and also, notably, allow people to travel through time. We may not know the plan, but we know the method. Speaking of Scott Lang, the Marvel Cinematic Universe's Ant-Man, there was a lot of built-in mystery regarding the variable size hero. With his second solo outing following Avengers Infinity War, he sat out the big showdown against Thanos, with him and Hawkeye taking a deal for their families. They were out of the game. For Scott Lang, we discovered out of the game lasted almost his entire probation until Janet Van Dyne made herself known and set off the events of Ant-Man and the Wasp. It turns out the Elder Wasp had been living in the quantum realm for the past few decades, waiting things out until Scott passed through in order to stop Yellow Jacket. Since the introduction of Ant-Man to the MCU, we've been told that the quantum realm is the danger zone for shrinking heroes, and that once you go in, it's hard to come back. It took a bunch of equipment and shrinking shenanigans for Scott to pull Janet out, and the new quantum tunnel was still supposed to be a dangerous proposition that took the entire team. Plus, Scott had to avoid tardigrades and time vortexes. When Thanos' snap worked its way across the universe, it dusted the only people who not only knew where Scott Lang was, but knew how to get him out. With Ant-Man being a no-show in Infinity War, we expected him to be a part of the finale in Endgame, so the fact that he got out isn't a surprise, but we would have liked to have been surprised when it happened. Now, we know that he'll show up at the Avengers door hoping to get in, and that Luisa's van has a role in the plan. Granted, it's not the most spoilery spoiler, and we don't know when he'll show up or exactly what the plan is, but once we reach the point where we see a sad Black Widow and Cap sitting at Avengers headquarters, we can expect a ring from Ant-Man. For Avengers resident super spy, changing her look is part of the job. Natasha Romanoff, aka Black Widow, is usually associated with her red hair. Even then, the hair doesn't stay the same from movie to movie, but once she switched sides in Captain America Civil War, she needed to drastically change her look as Cap, Falcon, and Scarlet Witch went into hiding from the world governments for rejecting the Sokovia Accords. This means that we can tell a lot about where in time Natasha Romanoff is based on the top of her head. In the trailers, we see her moving through her short blonde hair of Infinity War to her stark red hair of the pre-Sokovia Accords world. Unfortunately, this gives us a bit of a landmark as to where she is in time and when certain events happen in Endgame. Time travel has all but been confirmed, and the shifting color of Romanoff's hair confirms it. When asked what Thanos would do once he had finally wiped out half of all existence, his response was that he'd sit and watch the sun rise on a grateful universe. Okay, first, Thanos, suns don't rise on the universe. That's not how sunrises work. Second, you took away Black Panther and Spider-Man. The universe is not grateful. Not grateful. The point is, Thanos retired, his job was done, half of the universe turned to dust, no amount of punching Thanos in the face brought back Gamora, and while it might be satisfying to give the big, purple, ridged chin titan a superhero beating, it was unclear that doing so would even be worth the effort. All the way up until the tickets on sale spot, Marvel had been mum on whether or not Thanos even had a role to play in Avengers Endgame, in the Infinity Gauntlet storyline. After a series of defeats and victories followed by more defeats, retiring on the farm to contemplate his life is the end for Thanos. While we certainly didn't expect Thanos to be completely sidelined during the course of Endgame, it wasn't exactly clear that he'd in fact be the villain of the movie. There was even speculation that a new villain would emerge, like Annihilus, Kang the Conqueror, or even Mephisto. Thanos has a gift for smack talk, even if he occasionally farmed it out to Ebony Maw. His speech about defeat delivered to the fallen Asgardians was the height of bad guy confidence. The perfect soldier and the genius billionaire playboy philanthropist have had a bit of a rocky relationship. Steve Rogers, aka Captain America, thought that Tony Stark, aka Iron Man, was nothing without his suit, and then Stark thought that the only thing special about Rogers came from a test tube. Stark hadn't met Abraham Erskine, who knew that Rogers was the special element. The two butted heads again when Stark decided to team up with science bro Bruce Banner and created Ultron using the captured Mind Stone. Tony's attempt to end the fight before it started made Rogers log-splitting mad. Granted, his attempt to end the fight before it began did result in the killer self-replicating robot Ultron, who tried to drop a city on the planet to create an extinction-level event, so maybe Rogers had a point. Despite all of their differences, the two superheroes at the head of the team of Earth's mightiest heroes managed to foster a fair amount of professional respect. That is, until an explosion that sets in motion the Sokovia Accords comes about. It turns out that having a team of superheroes create a robot that tries to destroy the world made them think that there should be some level of oversight. Stark and Rogers took different sides on the issue, but they managed to find a way to work together. That is, until Stark found out that Rogers' bestie Bucky Barnes was the programmed assassin that killed Stark's parents. Making matters worse, Rogers knew and didn't tell him. This set off the epic showdown between the two heroes that resulted in Cap giving up his shield and the Avengers breaking up like a band. This split was so dramatic for the two heroes that even when faced with the universe-ravaging possibility of Thanos, Stark was reluctant to make that phone call to Rogers. With the knowledge that this may be the end of the road for Chris Evans as Captain America, we were looking forward to the two heroes reconciling, but it's definitely something we wanted to experience in the theater. Unfortunately, we saw the handshake in the tickets on sale teaser. Shuri was the ace in the hole for the Avengers when it came to ending Thanos. With Doctor Strange refusing to give up the Time Stone thanks to an oath to protect it, Earth's only other Infinity Stone resided in Vision's forehead. The Avengers were able to figure out pretty early on that in their broken apart state, they weren't going to be able to hold off Thanos on his march to gather the Infinity Stones. After all, Bruce Banner had already told them that Thanos had decimated the Asgardians and then took out none other than the Hulk. They headed to Wakanda to have the King's super genius sister Shuri take the Mind Stone out of Vision's head. Meanwhile, Thanos' Black Order showed up with a few ships full of Outriders to get their hands on the Mind Stone. To give T'Challa's super smart sis time, the remaining Avengers and the various tribes of Wakanda lined up to hold off the alien enemy. We're not trading the lives of the tribal warriors for Vision? Well, they were committed at that point. Even with the timely arrival of Thor and his new axe Stormbreaker with Rocket and Teen Groot in tow, the fight didn't go well. Scarlet Witch had to take the field, leaving the lab vulnerable to Corvus Glaive, who interrupted Shuri's work. Since Thanos already had the Time Stone after Doctor Strange gave it up, Scarlet Witch destroying the Mind Stone and taking the life of her boyfriend was undone, and Thanos snapped out half of existence. While we saw a lot of our favorite heroes turn to dust, we ultimately didn't know what happened to Wakanda's head of research. With the new promo poster separating the dusted from the alive, Shuri has been confirmed as dust, which is a little disappointing to know. One of the most frustrating parts of Infinity War was waiting for the Hulk to get over his snit and then join the fight against Thanos. The big purple people duster was owed a beating by the big green rage machine and we couldn't wait to see it. But it never happened. Hulk got owned and then sat out the rest of the movie, deciding at the worst time to have a labor dispute with his scientist counterpart Bruce Banner. This left the Science Bro to ride in the used Hulkbuster armor in the showdown in Wakanda. We famously saw the Hulk as part of the Battle of Wakanda in the trailers for Infinity War, even though he never made an appearance. A perfect example of Marvel using deception to maintain surprise and generate excitement. For Avengers Endgame, we haven't actually seen much of the big green guy. In fact, in trailers, we haven't seen him at all. We've barely seen Bruce, except for him looking bummed out. In the teaser, he mentions that if the team does what they're talking about, presumably doing some avenging with Thanos, that they would be going in short-handed. While Rhodey thinks it might be because Thanos killed a bunch of his friends, it's possible that Banner is talking about how he still can't talk the Hulk into making an appearance. Part of why we think that is all the promo pictures and releases that have pretty much confirmed the appearance of Professor Hulk, a merging of both Bruce Banner and the Savage Hulk. Savage Hulk is the distinction for the Green Hulk that's driven by rage. Now, why do we need that distinction? Because in the comics, there are several different Hulks, most of them still attached to Bruce like the Grey Hulk, Savage Hulk, and Professor Hulk. While it's exciting to see some of the other Hulks make their way into the MCU, we'd have liked to have been surprised by it. Our first hint at time travel being a big element in Avengers Endgame didn't come from trailers or announcements or promotional material or even tie-ins. It came to us the old-fashioned way, through the tried and true method of leaked set photos. Even the most secretive of sets can fall prey to the leaked set photo. This danger is amplified when the movie moves off the backlot and on location. All the non-disclosure agreements in the world or crews committing to not leaking don't mean a thing to eager fans who happen to have an eye on the filming locations. So when the Endgame crew showed up in New York to film scenes, it was really inevitable that photos were going to leak. What they showed provided a huge insight into what was going to happen in Avengers Endgame. The set looked remarkably similar to the Battle of New York. If that wasn't enough, Captain America was seen in his throwback jersey that he wore during that fight. Sure, this could be a flashback, but there was none other than Scott Lang in the photos, who wasn't even in the superhero game at the time. The only conclusion was that Janet Van Dyne's warnings about the time vortexes was going to be ignored, and that the Avengers would be skipping through time to solve their snap problem. Not only does this reveal too much about their plan, but it puts fans on edge as time travel can be a little tricky when it comes to story continuity. Ever since George Lucas retained the merchandising rights to his little space epic and then became a billionaire in the process, toy tie-ins have become a big part of blockbuster films. As the generation who grew up playing with their Star Wars figures got older but kept collecting those toys, toy tie-ins have played an even more important role. Of course, the best time to release a toy is as the movie comes out, so that young and old alike can run straight from the theaters to the toy store to get figures from their new favorite movie. This means that toy makers have to show retailers their product months in advance so they can get their orders in, stocking the shelves with all the new heroes and villains that'll be on the big screen. To do that, they have to show the toys in the packaging, which has made toy releases fertile ground for people looking to find out clues as to what the upcoming movie has in store. It's toy releases that have given us the biggest confirmation of Professor Hulk, as well as those snazzy white Quantum Realm suits and the fact that Thor and Rocket may be working together. That's everything we wish Marvel didn't reveal about Endgame. What are some of the things that you wish you could unknow? What do you think is classic Marvel misdirection? Let us know in the comments, and be sure to subscribe to CBR and ring that notification bell. As always, thanks for watching.